Hi, welcome back. It's Mrs. Hostetter continuing with the journey of the one and only family. I'm super excited. Sorry, I haven't been on in a while. I've been busy in the Florida Keys. And then, of course, I come back and had to set up my classroom. So we're on page 69 entitled My First Blue. I still remember my first crayon, stubby and blue and dwarfed by my hand. Julia gave it to me with a piece of paper, passed it through a small hole in my glass cage. I sniffed the crayon. I smelled beeswax and Julia. Slowly, I pulled the crayon across the paper. It dragged a little, as if it didn't want to part with itself. Still, a faint mark appeared. My first blue. Blue like sky. Blue like water. Blue like berries and jays and pansies. Blue like the shaved ice my visitors loved to eat while they stared at me in my sad little cage. And here's the illustration. Notice that I was stopping at the end marks. So very, very important to stop distinctively at the end marks and pause at the commas, ellipsis, and things of that sort. Blue. I drew for a long time, long after Julia went home. Later that night, I ate the little nubbin of crayon. I couldn't help it. I was so hungry. It tasted like old celery. I felt awful. I'd eaten my blue. It was gone forever. After a while, I picked up my paper and gazed at it. I saw my snaky squiggle, my lines and dots and circles. I smiled. It felt good seeing what I'd made all by myself. It wasn't just squiggles and dots. I'd created something out of nothing. I'd made a feeling. I held a piece of happy in my hand, and unlike my crayon, it would last forever. The next section are chapters entitled Little Ones. Ruby sends out a boisterous trumpet, and Julia turns to wave. Bitsy tries to trumpet too, but it sounds more like a squeaky sneeze. Little ones, Ruby says when she's closer, under her breath so that Betsy won't hear. Do you have any idea how annoying they can be? Bob and I exchange a glance. Think to yourself, what is a glance when someone glances at you? It's like a quick look. I may have some thoughts on that topic, Bob says. Betsy wraps her adorable little trunk around Ruby's. Ruby, Ruby, Ruby. Wait your turn, Bitsy, Ruby says. I'm talking to Uncle Ivan and Uncle Bob right now. Bitsy yanks on Ruby's trunk like she's playing tug of war. But, it's so important. Ruby extricates her trunk. What did Aunt Akella tell you about interrupting? She asked. Akella is the matriarch of the park elephant herd. If you remember from in class, the matriarch is the female head of the family. Bitsy dips her head. Raise my trunk and wait until I'm called on. Oh, I should read that a little differently because I see a question mark at the end of that sentence and I need to have that questioning sound and that look. So remember, she had said, what did Aunt Akella tell you about interrupting? Raise my trunk and wait until I'm called on? Exactly. Ruby turns to me. Ivan, did you see over there where Julia's class has been volunteering? That's where they're expanding the butterfly gar. Ruby, 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 Bitsy cries. My trunk is raised and I have a very, very, very important question. And that was in all caps. That's the reason I read it a little bit louder and with much excitement. Ruby looks at me, utterly helpless. I shrug. She looks at Bob. He shrugs too. I don't know. All right, Bitsy, says Ruby, taking a big breath before continuing. What is so important to say that you have to interrupt our conversation? We all fall quiet. Bitsy's eyes go wide. She seems surprised we're actually listening to her. Well, I just wanted to ask if I will grow fur like Uncle Bob and Uncle Ivan when I get bigger. And if I do, could it be purple with yellow spots? Ruby shuts her eyes. Someone. Anyone. Please help me. Do you remember the first time we met Ruby at the mall? Bob asked me. Stayed up all night. Why was it, Ivan? If memory serves, I reply, it was because she wouldn't stop asking questions. Kind of reminds us a little bit of Bitsy. I believe she asked if you were a monkey, Bob says. And if I'd ever driven a truck, I say. Bob nods solemnly. If I recall correctly, she also inquired as to whether or not I could fly. I never asked that, Ruby exclaims. How do you think the word never is written? Perhaps in caps? Or maybe you even think it in italics or italicized print? If so, kiss your brain. She hesitates. Did I? Let's just say the only time you stopped asking questions was when you were sleeping, I say. Or eating, Bob adds. No, I say. She loved to ask questions with her mouth full. Ruby flaps her ears and sighs. All right, I get the point, which means I know what you're trying to say. So, Bitsy asked, tugging on Ruby's tail. So, Ruby repeats gently and with a tolerant smile. Purple with yellow spots, Bitsy says hopefully. Or actually, pink with orange would be good too. Ruby glances behind her. I think I hear Anna Kella calling me. I didn't hear a thing, Bob says. Me either, I agree. And Ruby gives us a stop it, you two look. First, we have to show Uncle Ivan and Uncle Bob our new trick, Bitsy exclaims. All right, Ruby agrees. Let's get it over with. Ruby lowers herself until her tummy is touching the grass. 1, 2, 3, Bitsy exclaims as she clambers onto Ruby's back. Listen to that distinct vocabulary word, clambers. Can you perhaps use the context clues within the confines of the text or the passage to figure out what that means? I'll read it again. Ruby lowers herself until her tummy is touching the grass. 1, 2, 3, Bitsy exclaims as she clambers onto Ruby's back. Let's see, as she clambers onto Ruby's back. She's trying to get onto Ruby's back. Let me see if I substitute the word maybe climbs and see if it makes sense. 3, Bitsy exclaims as she climbs onto Ruby's back. Kind of makes sense, right? So that's probably what it means. Slowly, carefully, Ruby somehow manages, with great effort, to stand upright. Ta-da! Bitsy cries. Aren't we amazing? Also, keep in mind not only using the clues within the text, also using the picture clues is imperative or very important as well. There she is on top of her back, so she must have climbed to get onto her back, so that makes sense. And she had said, aren't you amazing? And she said, you are indeed, I say, as Bitsy slides off Ruby's back and tumbles onto the grass. Ruby and Bitsy are halfway down the hill when Ruby spins around and runs back to Bob and me. I had no idea I was so much work when I was little, she says quietly. Thank you for putting up with me. Wouldn't trade a minute of it, Bob says. Me neither, I say. Love you guys, Ruby says, and off she runs. Love you too, Bob and I both whisper. And I'll stop there for today so that you have some talking points with your parents. Maybe put these pages that we read from, I think it was 62 to 76, perhaps in chronological order, using chronology from beginning, middle to end. Think about maybe some things that happened and maybe what kind of text-dependent questions you could derive or make up so that you could show that you've clearly comprehended or understood what I read today. We'll pick up on page 77 with Missing Stella next time. I do hope you have a wonderful start to the school year, and I hope to see you soon. Take care. Love ya. Bye-bye.